Hi, my name's Lindy. Welcome to the channel. My website's www.lindycowling.co.uk, email info@lindycowling.co.uk for sessions, media or other. The way to contact me would be via that email address, please. And the title of this short, off-the-cuff, impromptu video is Timeline Juncture Points. Timeline Juncture Points. Now, this video is inspired by an old movie I watched the other night, and it is an old movie. It's been around for years, and I've seen this movie many times before, and the movie is called Sliding Doors. It's an older John Hannah, Gwyneth Paltrow movie where it's brilliantly done. It gives two different timelines, two different realities that are a couple of minutes apart for all the main characters in this particular film. So it shows you what would happen on the original timeline and what is happening on the one that's 2 minutes apart from that. And there are some juncture points, nodes or crossover points where the realities, so a similar scenario in both realities, but subtle, tiny differences. And I thought it was brilliant because the first time I saw that movie was many years ago when I didn't know anything about timelines or anything like that. So looking at it now with through the eyes of the heart and with a different perspective, I found it absolutely fascinating and pretty much spot on, really. And it almost kind of links into that multiple realities, multiple options, and of us existing in multiple realities, multiple timelines, all at the same time, and there being slight subtle differences in them as well. So I just found it fascinating. Now, in point of view for the video, for the perspective of the video today, I really want to focus on those crossover points, or what I call nodes or juncture points in timelines that are running, where we can subtly, inadvertently or intentionally, one or the other, alter our timelines, and we can be altering them throughout the course of a day, throughout the course of a week. Like I say, not even realize we're doing it inadvertently or consciously do it. Now, how you align, let's say, to your highest reality or highest timeline is according to what coding or what aspects of consciousness or what programming or what reality you are aligning with. Now, I've been into this many times over the last 4 years on this channel about programming and how to kind of deprogram, and every time I'm onto something new in that arena, I'm up there sharing it as more or less as quickly as I'm getting it in order to help people. So there are various ways that you can disentangle yourself from particular programs and particular scenarios, and the whole channel that I've developed here is a template, really, a template into how to get into your quantum heart, or our quantum heart, your quantum reality, your authentic 0 point consciousness reality. So reason I'm bringing this up is, how can you get to your, let's say, optimal experience or optimal reality when you are in survival mode or in a knee-jerk reaction to the circumstances around you, which we've all been there, and I've been there many times, believe me. How can you do that? How can you optimize your life experience, shall we say, life reality, when you are inadvertently responding to what's coming at you from life or aligning with things that you don't want to align with? how you align with things that you don't want to align with in terms of vibration or frequency. How that happens is it's the end of the equation that sits with you. Now, I've mentioned this many times on the channel before, that when we get stuck on a particular trajectory, or we keep going round and round like a hamster on the wheel, or round and round like a rag doll in the washing machine, round and round in these loops, where we have to break into that circle or that loop, the buck stops with us. So we have to track it back to what in us is still keeping us engaged with a particular reality or a particular timeline, especially if it's a particular reality or timeline that we don't particularly like or aren't particularly comfortable with. What is it in us that is keeping us on that trajectory? And it's a question. There are multiple answers to that, all of which you will find again on my YouTube channel, really. How you can simplify that, because sometimes you're kept engaged with something emotionally, mentally, in your energy in that way. Sometimes it's physically, sometimes it's got all the programming behind that, of the way that you've been brought up, the society you've been brought up in, the country you've been brought up in, the culture, etc., etc., etc. So it's a question of looking at and digging a little bit as what is keeping you aligned, let's say, in a frequency or vibration that you don't want to be aligned particularly in, because it's everything. Because that frequency and vibration that you're aligned with is at a certain level of your consciousness creating your reality as you are stepping into it. So it's no longer a linear way of looking at those things. As a linear way of looking at it would be, this is my life, I'm making the best of it, and you're kind of responding to things coming at you and kind of batting them away and trying to cope with them. It's more as you come up into the rungs of your heart consciousness, creating your reality as you go along, consciously creating your reality as you're going along. And the timeline thing, of course, all intersects with that, because there are certain junctures, shall I say, or I call them nodes, that occur frequently, where there are multiple choices in a way, or multiple outcomes on whether you turn left or whether you turn right. And if you're making those, let's say, those decisions pretty much consciously as you're going along, you're kind of getting the reality that you want to get, that's beneficial for you as a spirit essence or as a soul. But most of the time, people aren't aware they can do that or aren't doing that. They're more responding to what life is throwing at them. And there are crossover points on our parallel dimensions, shall we say, or multiple timelines, infinite timelines running at the same time. Just like this film, this old movie, Sliding Doors, where, like I say, I call it you can go left or you can go right. And these crossover points are really affected. The outcome is affected entirely by you or entirely by us. So what is going on in our head at that time, in our energy at that time, in our emotions at that time, in our awareness at that time, because that's going to affect our vibration and frequency, and our vibration and frequency is going to affect those things. And when we're in responder mode, when we are shielding ourselves from what life is throwing at us, which sometimes, that happens in life, really you're in recovery or survival, a survival state. You're not actually in you're in survival and not thrival. You're not creating at that point, you're reacting to what is happening around you. Now, that is part of the human experience, and of course we all go through that to a certain degree, but it's having that awareness that you can create your reality as you're going along. Now, it's not, let me put it this way, it's not the same as positive thinking. Positive thinking, positivity will only get you so far, because that is mainly coming from the mind. And although the mind affects a lot of things within us, it's not absolutely everything, because you have the heart mind and you have the, solar plexus mind as well. So positivity will get you so far, and yes, that can go so far into creating change in your lives and in your timeline, because you are upping your frequency a bit by positively thinking. But it's not everything. Really, it's a combination of the whole shift in your consciousness, which sometimes cannot take place if there are other aspects of your energy or consciousness stuck somewhere. So like stuck in our body consciousness, or filed away in our mental body, or filed away in our emotional body, our pain body, for example. So consciousness can get stuck. And there are, again, I've got it all on the channel there, ways of unsticking that consciousness. Sometimes it is the analytical awareness, sometimes it's various healing techniques or therapeutic techniques, sometimes it's sound that shifts a consciousness. Sometimes you don't have to be analytically aware of how it happened, just know that it happens. It's a combination of things. Sometimes it's doing the groundwork on it, looking at, again, where you are coming from, how much of you and your life is governed by free will, how much is it a reactive state. Why I'm being big on this, the reactive state thing, is you can't create your reality when you're in a state of being forced into survival all the time. Now, I could go further on that and say that there is a worldwide agenda which has been running long term, probably since humanity were here on the earth, to encourage the human species, to encourage humanity to be in a survival state. Because if you're in a survival state, then you're malleable and you're controllable, because you can't focus on anything else but surviving, and you can't focus on thriving. So you can't be at your optimal best or your sovereign frequency, because you're trying to survive in that boxing ring before you get knocked down again. So what I would say is, it's almost like wherever you are at when you tune into this video, because everybody tuning into this video, we probably know two people the same, that all be at different stages, and for some of them it will be different ways into raising their frequency and vibration. And one of the key ways is to look at the whole persona of free will, and look at the programming and the cultures and the societies that you're brought up in, and looking at all of those belief systems. Another way would be looking at your life as it is, that you're aware of it now, and what changes you would like to make, or being honest, very, very honest, authentic with yourself. Are you happy? If you're not happy, what can you do about that, or what can be done about that? What changes would you like to make? Are you living your life honestly and authentically? These kind of really heavy-duty questions that most people don't ask themselves, or take the time to ask themselves. They sound really basic things, but it is basic things, and looking at things almost as this bigger picture, and it's not the mindset, shall we say, of I am here, I'm on earth, I was born at A, this will happen at B, and I'll die at C, and I better make the best of it in between. I'm not saying there's nothing wrong with that or anything wrong with that, What I'm saying is there is more interplay, there's more play with that, there's more interplay of consciousness, more interplay of life, there is more opportunity in that, that you can say you will go from A to B to C, and you will have your linear perception and perspective on that, and you might have a reasonable or very good life like that. What I'm suggesting here is if you almost embrace the idea of almost like creating your reality as you're going along, playing with your reality as you're going along, then that A to B to C doesn't have to be like that. That A to B to C can be like this. It can be a movement of consciousness like this, where you are creating and playing and dancing with that reality as you go along, which is much more life enhancing. It is really, you know, I hesitated for a moment, it is really about living in that infinite second and infinite moment, hence the teachings on living in the now. In the consciousness state of awareness, it is literally everything in this infinite second. It gets frustrating when I'm trying to explain it, so I try and explain it as best as I can. It's bigger than I'm able to explain it, because when I say everything in this infinite second, that is all your timelines, all your recorded history of past, present and future, every single dimension and reality and variation, all happening in this second now, which is wonderful. I mean, it's mind-blowing really, and almost like embracing the idea, a bit like a kid in a sweet shop really, that you can play with that idea. And yes, you can I guess make the most of, to make it easier on yourself and to make it an easier journey of the circumstances you're in. But that sounds very blasé, because sometimes the circumstances we're in absolutely suck, and it's very hard then for you to get into that mindset. I know I've been there many times myself, to then almost be accepting of, okay, this is my reality at the moment. This timeline sucks, and I don't want to align with it. The point I'm making here, and then of course that creates a lot of resistance and a lot of pain and suffering, and I know I've been there many times before. How these intersection points happen is, say you're on a timeline now, and it's going like that. I'm only going in that direction just to explain it. They're actually going like that in a spiral form, but okay, just to explain it. So your timeline, you're going along like this. If you can go bigger and expand your consciousness, your awareness, and even entertain the idea that instead of going from there to there, you could go from there, much more interesting, to there, and create as you're going along. You can then hit a node or a juncture point or an intersection point on one of your other coexisting timelines and realities that are existing at the same time, and give yourself or experience even a better outcome than the one that you thought was running from here to here. And you do that by a shift in your state of awareness and consciousness. And how you do that, it will be different for everyone watching this channel. But the groundwork there is looking at your belief systems, looking at your programming, looking at all of that side of things. Look at where you're getting tangled up. Are you caught in your body consciousness? Are you caught in your mind consciousness? Are you caught in your psychic consciousness? Are you caught up in your pain body, etc., etc.? Looking at where you feel you are being authentic, or where you feel you're being totally inauthentic. What changes can you make? What stepping stones can you take? Oh, that sounds like a rap again. What changes can you make? What stepping stones can you take? I'm always doing little rhymes. So yeah, it's a question of just looking at things slightly differently and almost like allowing your reality to expand accordingly. You could say to me, does one know they are not on their ideal timeline or optimal timeline? I would, well, I can only base it as an experiential channel, so I can only base it on me here. And I certainly know. And when I was on my optimal timeline, then I was not on my optimal timeline for absolutely ages. And that was incredibly uncomfortable and sucked. And the more I resisted and fought against it, the more I kept getting bogged down in it. And in the end, it was going from bad to worse. Now I am back on my optimal timeline again, but it took ages, and that's only just shifted really since February of this year again. So I didn't temporarily derail and go off it. I went off it. I wasn't on my optimal one for a couple of years actually. So if some people might say or teach, oh yeah, you can change your timeline from getting up in the morning when you have your breakfast and by lunchtime you can have changed it again. I agree with that, but you can only do that when you've got to a high state of 0 point energy consciousness. The average man or woman on the street will not be consciously aware that they get up and have their breakfast and their timeline's different by lunchtime. That comes much later on in your reality. The ground level basics of it are looking at these other areas first that I'm suggesting to make sure that you get to a state where you're becoming fully conscious. And as you're becoming fully conscious, you are most definitely much more aware of yourselves as sovereign beings, and you are altering your timelines and realities as you are going on. And there are definitely juncture points or crossover points because I'm aware of them. So I know that it's an experiential channel where it's not really like, well, I could say jumping timelines. And I think I brought a video out on that maybe a year or 18 months ago. You can suddenly align with the other one. So like that film Sliding Doors, where they were showing two realities, the same star characters in it. Gwyneth Paltrow was the girl involved. I think it was 2 minutes apart or something. And there were some things that were similar. There was this crossing over, but some things that were very different. But a lot of it was similar. And in there, the magical thing was they didn't have an awareness of the other timeline consciously. But this is a spoiler alert, so if you don't want to hear this bit, mute the video for a minute. At the film's end, there's a line at the end there where suddenly, because she said that line and she only knew that line from the other timeline, which is 2 minutes apart from that, the two lead characters, their jaws dropped open and they spun around and stared at each other because they thought, wow, how did they know that? So there was that aha moment at that point. It was almost like the two timelines came to a juncture or crossed at that point, and there was an awareness of the multidimensional soul that they had met or interacted before. So yeah, I mean, I hope you find this video interesting, and like I say, it's all about expanding your mind, expanding your awareness, expanding your consciousness, all about coming into that full sovereign authentic you, which can only happen when you are aware of these other things, because if you're not aware of them, you're subconsciously programmed, and then you're going to just be responding to what life is throwing to you. At best, you'll be doing some positive thinking, which will create some changes for sure, but it won't create your ultimate changes. Those ultimate ones come with your becoming fully conscious, and there are these crossover junctures and points in these timelines where you can suddenly your frequency, it's like everything clicks into place. Your frequency and vibration is a direct match, shall we say, for another alternate reality. Let's say a more beneficial alternate reality. And you can align with that, and you will feel it and you will know it. Trust me on that. You will have the knowing on it and you will feel it. And if you were suddenly at some point to come off that again, you will know it and you will feel it, because it won't feel entirely comfortable. When you've been in the zone and then suddenly you're out of the zone again, it sucks. So you'll know that you've gone out of alignment with something that you were thriving and not surviving, but thriving in at that point, and you'll be the first one to know. So I don't want to waffle too long. I thought this was going to be a short video, and I'm nearly on 26 minutes already. So hope you found that interesting. Hope you guys are doing okay. Cannot believe it's May already. This year is going even quicker than last year. What can I say? On that note, I'll love you and leave you. As always, thank you for watching this channel. Thank you for subscribing to the channel. Thank you for supporting me as the channel in all the ways that you do. And I'll see you guys again soon. Loads of love. Bye. Bye.